to a combat zone. We got hit. Serving right. Right. Now, there was a good deal of combat here in Washington before he went overseas. And I can't go in, I don't have, they didn't award any battle stars for these, but they should have. Because wherever the action was, there was O'Leary. Or if there wasn't any action, he created it. Now, several people here have spoken of Colonel O'Leary. I never knew Colonel O'Leary. I knew Sergeant O'Leary. Evidently, they were two very different men. Another occasion, Jerry was hitchhiking his way to work, which was out here somewhere across the river, Naval Annex, I think they called it, and they crashed this over. In any event, he was hitchhiking, along came a pickup truck. The driver said, "Hop in." Jerry hopped in. He was up to his knees in very wet cement. So when O'Leary arrived at his workplace that day, he was really stiff. As a matter of fact, O'Leary's condition upon arrival at his workplace became a topic, daily topic of conversation, and Dewey's most interesting commentary. If we could usually tell where O'Leary had spent the night, judging by the appearance of his uniform. If the knees to his trousers were wet, and his elbows to his jacket were wet, he said, "Oh, he's been at it in his back again." And in the summer months, when he showed up with his knees to his trousers, he's a little frazzled, he said, "Back to the sidewalk." Oh, there he is now. Now, there was a reason for this. Jerry had come to me. This was really the basis of our friendship. Very minor things, over a beer. And he had said, "I have a project." And I said, "Yeah, go ahead." He says, "I'm going to use it up on it. It's really big." And Jerry always thought big. He had his project was the sexual conquest of the entire Washington telephone exchange. For one of the few times in my life, I was speechless. I was awed by the grandeur of such a concept. But we had this problem. We didn't have a base of operations. I remember one apartment that I had briefly over DuPont Circle in the basement. The furniture existed. There was a sofa, a table, and one chest of drawers full of empty whiskey bottles. A very attractive place. You could see people walking along the street outside of the basement apartment, and all you could see was their feet, and sometimes they had four. I saw it seemed some morning. But in any event, O'Leary and I resolved this problem of a base of operations. There was among our number, at that time in the Marine Corps, when I first went, a man you were not particularly fond of. Perhaps because he always thought he knew everything, when O'Leary and I knew that we knew everything. And in any event, this man had not been overseas. O'Leary and I had been overseas, and we'd gotten shot in that a little bit. And we felt that this man should go overseas as soon as possible. Especially since he had an apartment. I don't know whose idea this really was. I prefer to think it was O'Leary's, but I do not think myself capable of such perfidy. But I know O'Leary was. But in any event, we conspired, we could try, and we had that fellow out, and I had that apartment in very short order. Well, this apartment was on Harvard Street, or Harvard Avenue. Many Street. Very nice, very small. I got the Murphy bed. O'Leary had to take the couch. And we were in business. We had to go overseas eventually. I guess it was just as well. So we went back. I didn't see Jerry a long time. The Korean War broke out. I was based in Tokyo at the time, which covered here news. And I had a cablegram from O'Leary saying, "Get me out there." Well, there wasn't anything much I could do at that point, but Jerry got out there. He went back into the Marine Corps, and he appeared in Korea as the information officer for the 1st Marine Division. And Jerry's was not your conventional PIO, public information, public operation. If he liked the reporter, he could be very, very helpful. If he didn't like the reporter, he was known and said, "Go get your own goddamn story." It's sucking around me. Jerry was very consistent in one respect. He always set up his PIO tent next to the medical tent, where there was an abundant supply. Oh yes, there was, if I recall correctly, there was a young Navy doctor named Leo Delaney, who shared O'Leary's, and I must confess my own thirst for the drink. And so Delaney had the sick bay alcohol. One of the corpsmen had the new grape, and there was plenty of grapefruit juice. So it was a real convivial war. One of my friends, one of our friends, my Jewish friends who's not here tonight, recalls that one time the Chinese did something that was rather offensive, and the Marines had to withdraw, basically, and they set up their tent about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it turned out to be in the middle of a dry stream bed, except that it rained, and they almost all got washed away. But you can see Jerry survived, so I wasn't present. In any event, there's not much more that I can add to what I've already said about O'Leary, except that he left, I stayed in Asia. I was on a 30-year roll. I quit after 33 because I always said I would quit from these fun. So so it actually no fun. So that O'Leary came back and was redeemed by marriage to a good woman, and he has raised very handsome children. And I would say that he turned out a hell of a lot better than I ever thought he would.
Our next guest has requested that you hold your applause until he can turn on his tape recorder. You could call him Sam the Jekyll and Hyde of TV journalism. On the job, Sam is stentorian, aggressive, irrepressible, and exceedingly bright, as we all know. He probably has the highest face name recognition of any journalist. I'm sorry, Wesley hates the expression. Of any journalist in this country today. On the job, he is Mr. Hyde, but in social situations and in his own home, he is the soul of gentility and good manners, a la Dr. Jekyll. We don't know which of the two who showed up here tonight. You will soon find out.
I am a reporter. Prudence the journalist. I'm sorry to be here tonight because the fact is I don't much like Jerry O'Leary. Well, Maria I love and adore. I used to like O'Leary, but there came some times and some experiences which turned me against him. I'll tell you about a couple of them. There came to pass one time that a senior official of the Reagan White House took us all down to the Situation Room. Actually, we didn't get to go in the Situation Room. Small room, next to the Situation Room. I cannot identify the official. But we were all cramped in there around a little table. The official began to tell us about the history of the English-speaking peoples. If you study the Washington Naval Treaty of 1930, the official, hi bud, how are you? Sleep back. O'Leary went. Some of us went to sleep, but O'Leary went to his cigarette pack, took one out, lit it up. I was across the table from him. He sucked in a huge amount of smoke, and he blew it right in my face. I mean, I was enveloped in a great cloud. Some people here tonight may think that is my usual stance, but I was so angry at this man. Then he smiled right at me as the smoke cleared. I wanted to get up and punch him in the nose, but I'm respectful of my elders, always. Is that you, Ron? Are you back there? And also, I have a little bit of respect for the United States Marine Corps. Now, being a basic coward, I didn't punch him in the nose, but what I did was mount an anti-smoking campaign in the White House. I went up and I got tough, and I wrote letters, and I stomped my feet, and when it was all over, thanks to O'Leary's generosity, there's a little tiny plaque on the wall which says, "Please don't smoke during the briefing." And for good measure, he hired Fitzwater with his cigars. I held a grudge with O'Leary. But I suppose the thing that really set me against him was not just that. Now, O'Leary sat in the 5th or 6th row of the White House briefing room. In the old days, as the old-timers know, there was no row. Maybe you just sat wherever you wanted to, and there was these old chairs and cushions and what have you. But the Reagan people put in all these, order, we must have order in the world. And with all due respect, Arnold West, to the Washington Times, they did not give you a front row seat for those of us who deserved it. So O'Leary had to sit back there and kept complaining that somehow he never got in any questions. Well, that was his due as far as I was concerned. But what I really objected to was when Plant would be in a series of questions, and O'Leary would sing out, "Give me a chance, Sam." And then Chris Wallace would start in on Fitzwater. And finally O'Leary would say, "Come on, Chris, let me have a question." That was bad enough. But when Andrea Mitchell was engaging Fitzwater one day and O'Leary sang out, "Shut up, Sam." That was it. And so tonight I expose O'Leary as the fraud that he is. Some of us, ladies and gentlemen, have been given a bum rap. We are called egocentric and disrespectful. But the fact is, compared to us, O'Leary is Attila the Hun. I'm going to quote from the White House transcripts of presidential news conferences to prove my point. And also because your lovely paper once reviewed my book and called me a video idiot, and I want to demonstrate that in fact I can read. Wait a moment, let us take the ego first. I'm supposed to have a big ego. Planet, big ego. Chris Wallace, all the rest of us, video idiots. Listen to this ego. The president calls in a reporter, prime time news conference. Now, I'm going to have to imitate O'Leary, his voice, as you know, a cross between Hal Heflin and Bullfrog. I mean, I'll quite succeed. Mr. President, when I was in the Marines, here's this guy up here who claims to be in the horse cavalry, right? He floated to desk at Warner Brothers, but when I was in the Marines, the doctrine was to take the high ground and hold it. And I heard the Frank Lesser tune, take the high ground and hold it. You were humming that, weren't you? And not deploy on a flat open field like the Beirut airport. What reason is there to prevent the Marines from taking some more defensible position, you idiot? I mean, you can just hear it, in pursuit of the policy in which you have sent them there. Well, Jerry, airports just happen to be flat. Oh, you got the story that time. This is Germain's police reporter. Airports happen to be flat. Was that your headline? Ronald Reagan. Disclose it. Airport capital. O'Leary gets the beat. Pete Donaldson. All of those videos. I proceed. So much for your ego. Now we'll just examine the disrespect. Disrespect. Think of all the things. What name comes to mind? Disrespect to the President of the United States, an imperial figure, an august body, imbued with all the, in this case, the Norman Rockwell virtues, the old verities. Are there any new verities? I quote, once again, guess who's called on? I quote from the transcript. I believe you may have been slightly in error in describing a toe as a shoulder-mounted weapon. It's a ground-to-ground weapon, you idiot. Red Eye is the shoulder weapon, you fool. But that's beside the point. Toes are designed to destroy tanks. Yes, I know it's a tank weapon. I don't think it's fired from your shoulder. I mean, look it up, right? Look at the old man's way. The guy wants to go, no, pin into the wall. Right, where's the way? Well, now, if I've been misinformed, I'll yield on that. It was my understanding that that was a man-carried weapon. I did have a question, though. The question? No, sir, I thought I knew what a toe was. This is O'Leary in action. This is a man who's gotten up to ask the question of the president, pins him to the wall, destroys it, demonstrates for the first time that he may not quite have all the facts. You do gild the lily, don't you? Now, here's O'Leary's question. I won't trouble you much further, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the question he had in mind. This is a question. Now, have I, Mr. Pruden in your column, yes, right. Have I and others in my ilk, Mr. Plant, Mr. Wallace, the rest, have been accused of not just asking questions, but stating our opinions? You've heard that accusation made? I think the Attorney General on occasion has even felt that way. Somehow we get our own opinions. By the way, that line about the airport being flat, it was an Allen line. He left it behind. Here's the question. I just wanted to ask you, what would be wrong at this stage of the game? This is the famous news conference of November 19th, 1986. A small emergency had erupted, as you recall, selling arms to the Ayatollah. George Bush didn't know that until December 6th. Nuremberg explained it to him. I just wanted to ask you, what would be wrong at this stage of the game, since everything seems to have gone wrong, could possibly go wrong? Oh, thank you. I mean, the tax cut? You weren't spending the tax cut money? You ingrate. Like the Murphy Law, the Reagan Law, the O'Leary Law. What would be wrong in saying that a mistake was made? They picked that phrase up, you know, and later used it. On a very high-risk gamble, and so that you could get on with the next 2 years. Is that a question? Oh, Larry, I didn't mean to expose you tonight. It's better than exposing myself. I simply meant to say that I've watched you over a number of years, and you don't always preach what you practice. But what you do practice, pretty damn good. Because I've also watched, yes, I was there when Pio like it should have been the Pope, right? The Pope would have sat down and won a hand if O'Leary had asked for it. I watched you over the years. When I first came to Washington, you were that guy who did South America, was it Central America, wherever it was. I didn't know your name, but I always stole your stuff. And I've been doing that till this very moment. Because you've given us sort of a balance wheel. You've brought us a little maturity, a little knowledge, and we can use it, whether it's the White House press room or any place else. And a lot of integrity. Because you never did a story that you didn't think was right. You never told a lie. And you never praised a liar. And I salute you. And Colonel, you can blow smoke in my face.
You did it, Sam. Got a few messages at this point that I'd like to read. There's one from Henry Kissinger, who had originally accepted to attend this evening's event, but was called away to a European destination on an extreme emergency, a $25,000 speaking engagement. Says, Jerry O'Leary has been a friend since he was one of the Kissinger 14, imploring to be freed from the Mideast shuttle. For those of us who suffered through it, Jerry was notorious for having drafted his own separation of forces agreement. Some of you were too young to remember. That's when Henry was trying to negotiate between the Syrians and the Israelis a disengagement of forces on the Golan Heights. For having drafted his own separation of forces agreement, believing, correctly, that he understood military matters better than I did. Having survived those rigors, it was clear that Jerry could cope with anything, especially officials trying to keep their own counsel, not to speak of their own secrets. Now, as Jerry steps down from the presidency of the White House Correspondents Association, I want to join his colleagues and friends in congratulating him on his outstanding leadership and in wishing him new worlds to conquer. I will think of him with affection as a man of ability, honor, and integrity. From Mike Mansfield, to me, you have been one of the real institutions on the Washington stage. You have shown good judgment, critical analysis, superb reporting, and above all, a friendship which I value greatly. It is with deep and personal regret that I note you will be leaving your White House beat, but with the secure knowledge that you will not diminish your activity in or appraisals of what goes on in Washington. From Bill Clark, I shall never forget the loyalty, integrity, and discretion you displayed toward our country and colleagues during my own stay at State, the White House, and Interior. Jerry, your good counsel was most helpful to this California novice. Our gates will always be open to you out there. From Paul Laxalt, even though Washington, D.C. is the home of the greatest concentration of journalists in the world, apologies, Wesley, he hates that word. There are few members of the Fourth Estate who, because of their skills and experience, stand out from the rest. I certainly consider you to be part of this elite group. During the period I spent in the Senate, I came in frequent contact with the national media. It was nice to deal with a pro like you because I knew that the story would be covered fairly and accurately. Perhaps journalism has changed over the years, but you've proven that objectivity, fairness, and competence are still what separates the good from the great. Jerry, congratulations and my very best wishes. And from a fellow Irishman, I don't suppose you want me to dig into your past, but maybe a little peek on this occasion is okay. On a trip to Ireland some time back, Nancy and I were being shown through the ancient cemetery on Cashel Rock. Our our young guide took us to one particular tombstone he thought we should see. On it was inscribed, "Remember me as you pass by, for as you are, so once was I. But as I am, you too will be, so be content to follow me." That was too much for some Irishmen who had scratched underneath in the stone, "To follow you, I am content. I wish I knew which way you went." Jerry, why didn't you sign that? It's as good as anything you've ever written. Sincerely as ever, Ronald Reagan. Something that wasn't told tonight is that Jerry apparently took advantage of his knowledge of Spanish to demolish the competition when he first met Maria at a dance for Marine officers. Rumor has it that he broke in on the bachelor officer who was dancing with Maria and whispered into her ear, "Este hombre es casado." This officer is married. This cleared the field in a hurry, and Jerry and Maria eventually wed. Every editor has been heard to complain at one time or another, especially this managing editor, about reporters writing too long. In O'Leary's case, there may be an explanation. When he began his career as a copy boy at the old Washington Star, it was the custom to send aspiring journalists to cover citizen association meetings for experience. The pay, as I recall, Jerry, or as I read somewhere, was 39 cents for every inch of type that appeared in print. There was brisk competition among the copy boys, no girls yet in that era, to see who could get the longest articles past the copy desk. We have it on good authority that O'Leary was a champ. And for me, Jerry, you will always be the champ. Come on up here. And this is a cartoon that appears on the front page, and I'd like to present to you now, Jerry, with my love and affection. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you.
They don't make these tape recorders like they used to.
That was the operator.
Well, this is just about the most fun I've ever had with my clothes on. Just trying to decide whether to say thank you to my gracious roasters, or to be grateful that you don't know some of the things you could have said and didn't. But before I launch into a little bit of counter-battery fire here, I want to express my gratitude to Arno, West, Josette, and all my colleagues for these benedictions. With the possible exception of Richard Nixon, I don't think anybody ever left the White House with less flattery. Arno, you know, has been voted one of the best dressed men in Washington. And he also has one of the best tans in town. It's sort of a perpetual tan. Sort of like Arafat's 5 o'clock shadow. It might be a result of the greenhouse effect. Or perhaps an incurable case of jaundice. But it is not true that Arno has a tanning machine in his office. He does have a bed in his office. Nobody ever said Arno didn't have his priorities lined up. As to the roasters, let me say, it's obvious that you've all done your research well. I'm just glad my children are no longer at the impressionable age. And the truth is, I never was as good as I wanted to, you all to believe. And I never was as rotten as the roasters have painted me. When I was very new in this business, a couple of years after I became a reporter, I used to marvel at how did I ever get where I am? And after listening to these roasters, I wonder how you got where you are.